Now, we're here to talk today a bit about your recently released report, The Year in TV 2019, and then we'll talk a bit about COVID. Let's start with a report which tells a great story about the evolution of television last year. What were the big changes we really saw in the market? What's happening that the report highlights?
Well, there's been a huge amount of shift in the way that we're watching TV. So this report's a great place to go for the facts on the reality of the changes that we're seeing. So, for example, we're seeing that 50% of homes in the UK now have access to some kind of subscription VOD service. We're also got some data on there on what people are actually watching. Interestingly, if you rank the top 20 most viewed programmes in the UK across all types of TV, what we're seeing is there's only actually one that is from a subscription VOD service, and that's Friends on Netflix, which is the only one to make the top 20. We're also seeing some interesting data on how the average performance of a series compares on the likes of Netflix, Amazon to broadcaster TV. So, for example, on Netflix, their most watched program was Afterlife with Ricky Gervais, which did about 5 million household views. But there's still quite some way behind the likes of Bake Off or Strictly Come Dancing, which is doing around 10 million household views. So we're starting to see some of the change in the nature of how we're viewing, and we're getting some of the numbers behind this. And there's quite a detailed section on this in the report. We're also got quite a bit of opinion and news from the broadcasters, so we can see how the broadcasters are, really turning on their advanced advertising opportunities. We've got Kelly Williams from ITV talking about Planet V. We have Jonathan Aller from Channel 4 talking about their shift to adopt AdSmart and move onto that platform. Lots in there to take out on what's happening in the UK broadcast market.
So there really is a story about the ongoing transition of the industry towards something new and different. The big data point I took away was the dramatic change in linear or live viewing. And I think for the first time ever, the report suggests that in 2019, on a daily average point of view, linear or live TV accounted for less than 50% on average across all adults, and was less than a quarter of daily video viewing on average for 16 to 34s. What does this shift mean for the TV industry? It feels like a fairly seismic moment.
Yeah, I think it's a change that's been happening over the last 10 years, but it's been happening gradually. But now, sort of the broad light of day is suddenly realising, hold on a sec, less than a quarter of all viewing amongst 16 to 34s is to live TV. So we've seen this transition, this redistribution of viewing. And now with that young audience, 16 to 34s, we're seeing it very much redistribute into the on-demand space. But this isn't just the likes of Netflix, it's also to the broadcasters' own on-demand services. So when they get the content right, like ITV have done with Love Island, we're seeing that to that kind of content, a third of that viewing is now made up to video on demand. And this is an increasingly important space for advertisers to reach those audiences. And so what it means is that that planners need to adopt all of TV. They can't just live within a broadcast TV alone. They need to spend on the on-demand services that the broadcasters are providing as well.
So we need to work towards a much more joined up, integrated market in which we acknowledge that TV is everywhere now.
Absolutely.
So the other piece of news in the report that I found was particularly interesting was the piece about the beauty of BVOD advertising. And you have some pretty strong views that BVOD is genuinely special versus other video advertising offerings. Why?
So I think from an advertising point of view, there's a number of reasons that make broadcaster VOD special. Firstly, it's the fact that people only watch on demand their favourite shows, the stuff that they really don't want to miss. So you're advertising within a specific selection of people's favourite content. Then you see some of the stats I think are particularly impressive around it. So 75% of all viewing to broadcaster video on demand is on the big TV screen. So you're in this sort of high quality big TV environment. And because people really care about these shows, they're willing to watch the advertising exchange. And the view through rate for broadcaster VOD just is beyond compare in the online video space. It's at 97%. And you just can't get numbers like that outside of broadcaster content. So I think, the other thing that's particularly interesting here is that it's a really good space to hit those live viewers. So if you look at the proportion of viewing to broadcaster VOD, about half of it is made up of that lightest half of linear TV viewers. So you're much more likely to build incremental reach. And from an advertiser's point of view, this really matters at this current time.
That is really interesting. So obviously in Q1 of this year, with the current crisis, we've seen huge spikes in in-home viewing, both TV and online video, streaming services and so on. How is viewing being redistributed? What changes in viewing behavior other than just big spikes are we seeing?
Well, yeah, as you say, people are in lockdown, so they're in their homes. They're going to be watching more TV, and we're definitely seeing that reflected in the numbers. So the change in viewing to live broadcast TV is a 40 minutes per person per day growth, but we're also seeing an exactly the same volume of growth to the unmatched viewing, which is the subscription VOD. It's your Amazons, it's your Disney Pluses now, it's your BritBox, it's your Netflix. So you've seen 40 minutes of growth to that as well. So in total, 80 minutes per person per day growth across this period of lockdown. In terms of what's being watched, obviously it's the likes of news content. So news content, the news channels like BBC News, Sky News have grown over 170%, which makes sense. But we're also seeing, interestingly, sort of comfort viewing, where people are, I think, looking for escapism. They're looking to get away from the fact that the reality isn't particularly that pleasant. And so we're looking to lose ourselves in a good bit of TV. And we're seeing some, huge audiences for the likes of Anton Deck on a Saturday night, where ITV are now sort of filming without a studio audience. They're turning it into a different kind of show. This kind of stuff is really, really working and really resonating with audiences at the moment.
So what does this shift in viewing and this huge growth in supply mean for UK broadcasters and advertisers? What does it mean for the market? What kind of opportunities does it create?
Well, as the UK ad market works on a supply and demand basis, the fact that supply has massively increased, and also demand will have gone down as all the travel advertisers, all the retailers who can't really benefit from spending at this point in time. So we see a spike in supply, a decrease in demand, and so the price of TV is just incredible value at the moment. So for any advertisers who are able to capitalise on this from a short-term point of view, so we're seeing, the likes of Karcher, who are just putting quite a lot of ads out at the moment, and what a perfect time to do a bit of pressure washing. So we're seeing, if you look at Google Trends, you see this fascinating relationship between the TV advertising for Karcher and the number of people searching online for Karcher. So it's a huge opportunity for certain advertisers who can really capitalise on this low price for TV at the moment.
And finally, let's talk a bit about long-term impacts and implications. So we're all hopeful, obviously, that we come out of the current crisis sooner rather than later. There's a lot of talk in the industry about longer-term changes, resulting from the current crisis. Do you envisage any significant structural changes or long-term impacts of the crisis going forwards?
It's one that's so difficult to call. There's a lot of different areas of speculation on what the impact's going to be. I think obviously we're going to see the fact that the demand for advertising has been hit in this short term. We're going to see pressure on everybody, and we're seeing that in the moment in the press that we're reading. So we're seeing programme budgets are going to reduce for the broadcasters. But again, constraints like this can create opportunities. You'll be surprised about the type of formats that could be coming out, which are based on the fact that the broadcasters have less money to play with as a whole. And I think from an advertising point of view, there's been a lot of talk about this being the sort of the type of environment where there could be this really significant bounce back. So once we sort of start to come through this, the market could really, really pick up again. And we could see advertisers, putting their money back in. But from this point of view, again, from the supply and demand basis, this does mean that the price will suddenly go back up again, which means it's just more important for those advertisers who can capitalise on the low price now to really be taking advantage of it while they can.